Ovarian failure. Long back, it was written that ovaries, after long years of service, do not have the ability to retire gracefully, but become irritated, transmit these irritations to the cerebral tissue, exhibiting themselves in extreme nervousness or in an outburst of actual insanity. Now that's about different story of menopause. But I think for premature ovarian failure, we need to understand that the biology of ovarian aging is interesting. We all know, and 5 weeks of the fetus itself, the germ cells migrate to gonadal ridge. 20 weeks peak oocyte number. At birth, it goes to 1 to 2 million, and pre-puberty, 90% are lost. Nothing is there. Very few are there. And of course, not that nothing, but some of them, when they have premature menopause, they don't have oocytes. So 90% are lost, and only about 400,000 are remaining. Exponential delay over reproductive years. So the phase 1 of decline is up to 37 years. Steady decline by atresia or apoptosis, and later it's an accelerated process of follicle depletion. It means that in an infertility patient, after 37 years, the oocytes are very less, and we have to be very careful in evaluating. But my topic for today is premature menopause. So when you say less than 40 years of age, it's characterized by amenorrhea associated with hypoestrogenemia and elevated gonadotropin. Some say 35 years, but anyway it's a grey zone. Less than 40 years is interesting. However, premature menopause should ideally be defined as ovarian failure occurring 2 standard deviation in years before the mean menopausal age of the study. Maybe it's a misnomer, often used synonymously with premature ovarian failure, is a premature menopause. Premature menopause is a state wherein there is a premature ovarian failure basically is a cause of premature menopause. Intermittent ovarian function produce estrogen intermittently, and even sometimes they ovulate. So a more appropriate term would be hypergonadotrophic hypogonadism, or maybe primary hypogonadism. The incidence was 1 in 100 when you look at 40 years, 1 in 1000 30 years, 1 in 10,000 even at 20 years. So the 3 hypotheses proposed for these kind of problems. Number 1 is low initial number of ovarian follicular reserve. Number 2 is acceleration of the atretic process. And number 3 is follicular dysfunction. The low initial number is basically because of disruption of the germ cell, formation, migration, and oogonia proliferation. The thymus helps in endowment of the primordial follicles. Hence, thymus aplasia, hyperplasia may be associated with premature ovarian failure. Interestingly, the acceleration occurs with Turner syndrome because they have oocytes, but it just goes away very fast. Fragile X premutation and galactosemia. We are not estimating all that, but I want you to learn a little bit about it. What do we really assess in premature ovarian failure? Defective gonadotropin itself may be the problem, and you know there can be afollicular ovarian failure or follicular afailure, follicular ovarian failure. The total depletion of follicles is a permanent loss of function, and lack of migration is afollicular one. The follicular one is possibility of spontaneous induced ovarian function, maybe some kind of oophoritis, and maybe numerous follicles may be still present but do not function. So there are several reasons: idiopathic, iatrogenic, we all know that, infections, but interestingly we should understand something of autoimmune problems. And the other ones are not easy to diagnose, like enzymatic defects, cytogenic defects, and of course isolated defects. So we all know this. Iatrogenic means chemotherapy, radiotherapy, pelvic surgery, smoking, etc. I won't waste time on that. Sometimes infections like mumps, cytomegalovirus, herpes zoster, very rarely even tuberculosis can cause premature menopause. But I want you to understand this slide. If somebody comes with premature ovarian failure, don't ignore that point because she may be having other problems. The other problems are endocrine related, like thyroid disease. They may be having these kind of Graves and Hashimoto's problem. Adrenal failure sometimes, maybe a very subtle failure, gets exaggerated maybe when you do surgery on them. Hypoparathyroidism can be a problem. Diabetes can be a problem. So we have to evaluate diabetes, thyroid problems, adrenal problem. The non-endocrine ones are sometimes they look anemic. It may be pernicious anemia. They can be ITP. Myasthenia gravis is not easy to remember and think. However, glomerular nephritis and even sometimes rheumatoid arthritis. That means a woman with rheumatoid arthritis may get into premature menopause. Chronic renal disease, they may get into premature menopause. Myasthenia gravis, we don't even diagnose. Maybe we think it comes in only older age, but it can come even earlier. So all of these patients may get into premature menopause. However, adrenal insufficiency or Addison's disease, I once thought is never associated, but is seen in 4% of premature menopause. However, 9 out of 10 Addison's disease end up with premature menopause. So medically, they are admitted in the medical wards, and sometimes we get consultation saying she's not having menstruation. We think it is maybe temporarily, but it may be permanent because of follicular atresia and all these apoptosis occurring because of the other medical conditions. They don't have oocytes. As a screen for the presence of asymptomatic autoimmune adrenal insufficiency, we may have to do serum anti-adrenals and anti-21 hydroxylase antibodies. Should be measured when you suspect these things. Those with positive antibodies should be carefully evaluated for the presence of adrenal insufficiency. We don't do this often, but we can't find a cause. You may have to go on doing. I for one would not take this as the first investigation. I would rather do other things. So we know that associated with primary ovarian insufficiency precedes the development of symptomatic adrenal insufficiency by several years. So we may have to take endocrine opinions when we get premature ovarian failure. If proper screening is performed, approximately 3% of women with spontaneous primary ovarian insufficiency will be found to have asymptomatic autoimmune adrenal insufficiency. It's important for us to know because sometimes they land in some surgery and get into some complications. So we have to really evaluate not as primary modality, but keep in mind all these kind of rare problems. But interestingly, this is interesting to know because premature ovarian failure girls are also at an increased risk of developing autoimmune thyroidism, hypothyroidism, and should be routinely screened for this. So we can simply do TSH values. If TSH is very high, it's not only giving L-troxin, you have to also check for anti-thyroid antibodies. All these are autoimmune connected problems, and they come to us as just premature ovarian failure. Lot of things are never done, but to be more research orientated, we can do these kind of galactosemia, and even sometimes aromatase deficiency may be evaluated. So I'll skip all this because it's not done. But interestingly, the cytogenetic abnormalities are seen like Turner syndrome. They may come with primary amenorrhea, but sometimes they have little few menstruation and then they stop. They get into premature ovarian failure, and occasionally fragile X premutation in all these kind of genetic studies are important. And 14% of familial premature menopause are associated with kind of some of this gene premutation. It sounds very high and unreachable, but I think I for one would just mention these things to know you can't push away premature ovarian failure people. You have to do autoimmune studies, you have to do cytogenetic studies. May not be everything, but connected to certain of these symptoms and signs can be taken into consideration for choosing the investigations. So we always wonder, is she pregnant, or is she having menopause, or is she having some other cause of secondary amenorrhea? So but one thing is for sure, all of them will have elevated FSH values above 40. Usually 30 to 40 is the criteria for diagnosing premature and menopause. Most of them who are reproductive age group have 10, less than 10, and if they have more than 3 to 4 times, we know things are really bad. We have touched this upon in several lectures. They do not have good antral follicular count, and the antral follicular count is very poor, less than 4 in each ovary. And we also have discussed about anti-Mullerian hormone, which can be another investigation to be sure that she has reached menopause. Hot flushes, atrophic changes, all are not seen in a very young premature ovarian failure, but they may have long-term effects like cardiovascular problems, osteoporosis, and also continuing the infertility problems. So hence, to diagnose, we go into menstrual history, symptoms of estrogen deficiency, fertility status, exposure to all this chemotherapy and radiotherapy, previous surgeries, and the familial history. It may go through mother, daughter, and so on, early menopause, mental retardation, and autoimmune disorders. So I think we should understand, if the family has autoimmune problems, this particular lady who is young may get into premature menopause and may not be at 30 years, maybe at 35 years. So the family history of autoimmune thyroiditis, family history of autoimmune problems, when they come for infertility, don't prolong, because they may get into premature menopause and they already may be having bad AMH and bad antral follicular count, and sometimes you have to be very, very precise and kind of aggressive in managing or selecting even in vitro fertilization programs. So then the diagnostic approach, whatever I said, can be grouped as 3 groups of tests should be performed when ovarian failure is suspected or has been diagnosed. Tests that establish diagnosis of premature ovarian failure or insufficiency, tests that help clarify the etiology, screening tests for other diseases known to have higher prevalence among women with all these kind of insufficiencies. So to establish the diagnosis, we could choose FSH, you could choose LH because both will be high, but if you choose one, you would choose FSH. And if you want to really do some more things like estradiol, they will be less than 50 picogram, because most of them should be above 50 picogram. I think I would just choose one among the 3, because I know if FSH is high, then everything is bad. I'm just telling you all, like postgraduates sitting here, their examiners come and bombard questions, but I don't ask such questions because it is not very common. But you should know to write an answer about premature ovarian failure like a postgraduate, but as a clinician, I would choose only one among all these kind of things. So to test to clarify the etiology, karyotyping is definitely done, but you also should know that among all those autoimmune things, I would choose thyroid function test, thyroid and adrenal autoantibodies. I still don't do adrenal antibodies normally. I would take an endocrine opinion. They will evaluate is there any evidence of these kind of things, and then maybe do those adrenal insufficiencies. Complete blood picture. I would rule out blood sugars, electrolytes, calcium, phosphate, and so on. Because electrolyte imbalance can be one of the association with adrenal insufficiency. And rheumatoid factor, if there's history of course, rheumatoid arthritis, but not otherwise. Anti-nuclear antibodies will tell us about autoimmunity basically. Of course, creatinine is basically for renal function test, because I mentioned glomerulonephritis may be one of the causes of premature menopause, and we don't do prolactin routinely. So to assess the ovarian ultrasound, ovarian volume, number, and of course antral follicular count was discussed a little while ago. And sometimes these ovarian antibodies may be associated in 15 to 20% of the times. Increased frequency of these disorders, no reliable tests are currently existing. However, evaluation of other peptide factors like inhibin B and AMH, among all these I would only choose AMH to say that this is enough to understand premature ovarian failure. So the management of premature ovarian failure is psychological counseling, emotional support, genetic counseling, restoration of fertility if they want fertility, and you know that hormone replacement has been discussed beautifully in the morning. I wouldn't discuss about that, but we should give HRT if they are not contemplating on fertility, because there are lots and lots of problems with premature menopause. So we need to counsel them for genetic counseling. Sometimes pedigree studies, mother, grandmother and sisters and so on, they attain menopause earlier, and sometimes, which is important to know, all these kind of genetic pedigree problems are associated with autoimmune problems, chromosomal, psychological And I for one would ask my physicians who is an expert in endocrine or an endocrinologist to evaluate further a premature ovarian failure. Sometimes spontaneous recurrence occurs very rarely, but pregnancy is possible only in the follicular form. I said afollicular and follicular. Follicles mean there was oocytes which disappeared later, but there may be sometimes occasional pregnancy with the follicular form of ovarian failure. And resistant ovarian syndrome means they have a kind of a capsule which doesn't really respond to gonadotropins, but the oocytes are still present there, and ultimately autoimmune ovarian failure. Ultimately, if you rule out these endocrine problems, all the autoimmunity is ruled out, then the current option, the best option is donor egg if they are willing. Donor egg, when you rule out other problems, and pregnancy rates are very high. But as you know, they all are very small uterus and they have to be responding to estrogen for some time. You give them estrogen and progesterone combination, estrogen for 21 days, progesterone for the last 7 days. You give a gap of 1 week, you repeated it for 3 months and 6 months, they should menstruate. Only when they menstruate about 2 or 3 times, then you can take them up for donor egg oocyte. If you take them up directly, the uterus is so small, you put good embryos, it won't implant. So the rule is, in a premature ovarian failure, all these things must be understood to manipulate the uterus in such a way the uterus becomes now normal, and then do this embryo transfer. Of course, immunotherapy has not much of role. Ovarian transplant is not yet popular, and ultimately we know adoption is the easy way. But one thing is for sure, if you have a case of Turner syndrome, needs a proper cardiovascular evaluation before being considered for donor egg, because I had one patient who was they had calling me by telephone for consultation. After halfway of pregnancy, patient had this kind of aortic dissection during pregnancy. So we have to be very, very careful with evaluation of all the cardiovascular system before we take up for donor egg IVF program. Hormonal replacement therapy I will skip completely because there was a session earlier, but when to start, when to give, how long to give, it's important to know. How long to give is you continue till the normal menopausal age. You don't give for 5 years and 10 years, you may have to give much more than that, because the normal age is approximately, we know it's about 45 to 50 years, so you may have to give a longer than the scheduled, but after very, very careful monitoring, careful evaluation, but there is no data available to evaluate the impact of treatment on the risk factors. So we will skip all this. We give estrogen and estrogen progesterone combination. I am now using micronized estradiol valerate. Of course, any of the estradiol valerate can be given, and you add on progesterone for the last about 10 days. Does not provide contraception, but avoids supraphysiological levels achieved by oral contraceptives. OCP may be used if the cost is a major factor, and if contraception also is required. The dose of estrogen HRT is usually 3 to 6 times lower than in currently available low dose birth pills. In other words, the micronized estrogen tablets are very low potency. Not that OC pills, you give high estradiol, ethinyl estradiol is not used. The micronized estradiol valerate or a non-micronized one can be used, and these are very, very low. It is 1/6 the potency of the other kind of estrogens. So to evaluation and workup before HRT is important. I will skip all that because it has been dealt, and the contraindication is also have discussed. So it is important first to assess these young women from a general endocrine perspective and also from an emotional perspective. And to summarize my talk, premature menopause is cessation of menstruation less than 40 years. It could be spontaneous or induced, characterized by high FSH on any date or any time of the menstrual period. Of course, the menstruating woman, you can't do at ovulation time. It's usually done post-menstrual. Understanding the pathophysiology helps in the long-term management. Oocyte donation is the best option. However, addressing other aspects of primary ovarian insufficiency that may have adverse effects on their long-term health, such as autoimmune endocrinopathies and osteoporosis,